Welcome back. Communication between individuals doesn't always come easy or natural when you don't share the same views on an issue. They can take an unexpected turn, making the situation awkward at best or at worst combative with damaged relationships. Dr. April Chatham-Carpenter and Dr. Glen White of Braver Angels of Arkansas are back for the exciting sequel with some tips on how to engage in respectful dialogue in family and social settings, especially as we head into the holidays or for some family gatherings where conversations like these might take place. And so as we look at these kinds of conversations, especially in some cases, these conversations haven't taken place since the last holidays. So it's not like they're seeing each other all the time. So it's, oh no, yet another awkward conversation with crazy Uncle Joe or whatever. How do we handle this in our expectations?
You know, a lot of times it's because we had the expectations of the behavior, and it could be of ourselves, right? The last time that Uncle Joe said that, I know that I lost it, and I can't do that again because that created all kinds of issues for the family and drama, right, for the family. So sometimes it's those expectations that get us in trouble. We have to anticipate those.
Yeah, and I think when I think of talking to someone and try to keep things between the ditches, as it were, I think of two things: communication and connection. The communication part is to make sure that when we're talking, that we do so in a way that it's clear, that it's respectful of them, and then the connection part is also making sure that whatever we do, we're trying to maintain the relationship either as good as or maybe even improve it.
The last time you were here, and this is one of the reasons why we're back, because we're thrilled about this sequel that we've got, you mentioned there's a formula that you can use, that you can teach yourself when you're having these kinds of conversations. Could you go into a little bit more depth on what that formula is?
We use it in almost all of the Braver Angels workshops that we have. It's called the LAP formula. Listen, acknowledge. The A can stand for acknowledge. It can stand for agree. It can stand for appreciate. Lots of things with the A. Then pivot to your own perspective, but you ask permission before you share your perspective, and then share your perspective. That's the LAPP.
Okay. All right. And that's a good way for us to kind of keep that in our memory banks. One of the things that can kind of help is if you guys would be willing to role play a little bit and kind of demonstrate a technique, because if you've listened to the On the Other Hand podcast, they represent both sides of the aisle here, and you've demonstrated great how you can get along with each other, but could you show us something that might be able to inform us on how to handle some of these tough issues?
Okay, how about we start with me playing a blue or liberal-leaning person talking about immigration, and I won't start it off in a Braver Angels kind of way. I'll start off in a little combative stance. Is that okay?
I'm ready for the combating.
Okay. You know, I appreciate meeting you. What do you think about this stuff? This administration's doing crazy things with the immigrants. It's just really hateful, and he's wanted to build a wall. I just don't get it.
Well, I'd like to hear more about your perspective on that. I really don't know you, so tell me more about why you think that's a concern.
Well, I just think our country was built on immigrants, and I think that immigrants can play an important part. As far as the wall part, you know, I don't believe in open borders, but I do believe in a wall is a particularly ineffective, cumbersome kind of way to manage the border. I would personally like to see more funding go to the people who can make decisions and get people through in a hurry who are coming through the border, and sort out who is there legitimately and who needs to be sent back.
Well, it sounds like you feel pretty strongly about it and that you've actually thought a lot about it. I actually might agree with you more than you expect.
Really?
In terms of the role of immigrants in our society. I'm curious, would you have time for me to share my perspective a little bit so that you could hear that?
You know,
too?
I need to go talk to someone real quickly. Could we meet in about 5 minutes up at the bar and we'll have a chat?
Absolutely, that sounds great.
Okay, good
Look forward
talking to you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Look at that. That was nice and peaceful. But I liked how you de-escalated. You asked questions first. That the LAPP, you followed that technique, and you could see that working. And so, what I would ask then is, so sometimes you get in a conversation with somebody, and they may or may not be factual, but they are absolutely uncertain. And so, how do you deal with that?
So, in those kind of situations, a lot of times I don't do it as well as I just did because my emotions are also aroused by something that they're talking about. and I think about maybe I'm feeling threatened because something that they said just kind of went against something on my own identity. Maybe I'm interpreting something that they said to think this is what they're thinking about me. And so I get kind of like in this fight or flight mentality. And at that point, I've got to be aware of my own emotions. Where are my shoulders right now? Because I'm probably like this, and I need to just deep breaths, hold my hands out so that I'm willing to actually being aware that I want to have a curiosity conversation, a learning conversation. And sometimes I just can't deal with it at the moment.
You're not alone. One of the things to understand about that is when it comes to our identities and our strong beliefs and things like that, the tribe we identify with, that is a very primitive part of our brain that's in operation. It wants to retain our beliefs and our affiliation with our tribe at all costs, because back way when, our lives did depend upon it. Now it doesn't, but our brains still act as if it's a life or death matter when we hear something different than what we may ascribe to. And so let's offer each other some grace when we get a little bit worked up over what someone else is saying, and when someone else is coming on really strong. Remember, they're probably going from that part of their brain. We do have an alternative of trying to use that smarter part of our brain to work against it. Use things like facts, being rational, using morality standards, the law, rules, things like that kind of keep us from being just another wild animal in the woods.
You mentioned grace, and we see so little of that in today's political discussion. And you touched on it a little bit, but when your emotions get up, that's when you're going to say things that you probably shouldn't, and kind of over-exaggerate how you might actually feel, and be less likely to be able to extend that grace. How can we control our emotions in the moment?
Yeah, so for me, it's about deep breathing. It's about keeping my hands open, being aware of what's happening in my body, even naming the emotions and saying, I'm feeling right now a little irritated, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling attacked. I don't know that I can actually have this conversation with you right now because I'm having these feelings and I need to walk away. And maybe we can have them when things are settled down a little bit, have that conversation. So sometimes I have to walk away because I'm a hothead. I will say things that I regret.
Know thyself.
And I think she's right, everything she says. You can also do that with yourself internally when you're in the middle of the conversation. If you can pull that off, realize I'm getting emotional now, and then you start to take those deep breaths she's talking about, calm the muscles, and remember, what is my goal? My goal here is to be a civil, decent human being, and maybe go back to something like the lap skills, and start using that again. That puts that smarter part of your brain back in charge.
There are some people in our lives, though, Carlton, that love to push the buttons.
Yeah.
And we call them in Braver Angels, there's a workshop called Family and Politics. We call them the gladiator. Typically, they're the ones that want to fight.
There's also an assassin.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
And
so with snipers, and
Yeah.
I mean, there's all these kinds of terms that people sometimes they just love to fight. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to fight. Mm-hmm. Or we do want to fight, but we want to win. And so being aware of that inside yourself is important.
Well, and sometimes kind of accepting what is the end goal here. And so is it to win this argument that's probably going to be unwinnable in so many situations, or is it to preserve a relationship so that you can have an opportunity to have influence later? That can kind of help. One of the things that you mentioned is when you do get into a situation where it's starting to get a little bit heated and the other person is not going to give, does it help to recognize that sometimes there's other people in the room that are watching what's taking place, and your words might be going towards this person, but they're being received by the people who are watching? Can that help with the diffusion of your emotions and give you purpose?
Sure it can. And at the same time, you don't expect, or you should not expect, to change people's minds anyway. That rarely happens. So it's more about understanding and not winning the argument. So you can have those effective things that you say to the person that you're not going to change their mind, and maybe it has an impact on people around. That's good. But regardless, be respectful and keep the communication in mind.
You can also, though, have an us versus them mentality. So imagine that are the Razorbacks playing this We can. That's important. I'm just thinking about, you know, you could get into a fight over who's going to be, you know, on whatever the topic is, and all of a sudden, you know, people are at arms. So you can sometimes use the group in ways that aren't good as well.
Yeah, and you bring up something else, because we're talking about this in the political context, but, you know, in sports, it can get, you know, I actually know some people who cheer for Auburn. And that's tough.
Yeah, yeah.
There's going to be some tough conversations, but these skills can apply to a wide variety of things, obviously, within.
Yeah.
Good. On the Other Hand podcast, where can people find it?
Well, you've got several places. It's hosted on the Podbean website, so we have a brief web page there. But the best place to go is to our Braver Angels Arkansas website, arkansas.braverangels.org, and that will take you to our main page, and then you look for the podcast drop-down menu and go to the Arkansas podcast, and you'll find it there.
I can't recommend that podcast strongly enough. I had the opportunity to be on that podcast. We did a two-part series there, but I think just like what you demonstrate and what you say is that we are far more alike than we are different. There are other forces that would love to divide us, and when we can sit down and talk to each other and really reason with each other, we can come to some better conclusions. As I felt for a long time, we can do politics better than how we are doing them right now. And if you listen to these folks, you'll be able to do so as well. So April, Glenn, thank you very much for your time here today. And we thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Arkansas Week.